Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. A call from CDB that the region adopts a more transformative agenda in its security preparedness plan. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Thursday, 30th March 2023. Details when we return.
Hubbard's Multi-Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies Compound in Grand Anse, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived are new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
Welcome back. President of the Caribbean Development Bank, CDB, Dr. Hyginus Leon, has suggested that the region adopts a more transformative agenda in its security preparedness plan. He believes that such an agenda would also lead to improved conditions for economic growth and development for the region. The CDB president spoke at the opening of the Regional Security System Council of Ministers meeting in Grenada on March 22nd. Zane Romulus of the DBS News World has more.
Several matters pertaining to the security of the region, including the illegal arms trade, drug trafficking, and intelligence gathering, were up for discussion at the RSS Council of Ministers meeting last Wednesday. In addressing the gathering, President of the Caribbean Development Bank, Dr. Hyginus Leon, stressed that urgent action must be taken to stabilize regional security, as this forms the heart of economic development of the region. The CDB president added that it is the position of the bank that no single entity, individual or group can accomplish sustainable development on its own. As such, he has recommended that regional territories embrace a multilateral approach to security matters.
Our mostly porous borders, along with the overlapping of exclusive economic zones, mean that we face significant challenges to the management of safe and legitimate movement of goods and people. This point highlights the fact that a more robust collective regional approach by all policy practitioners is necessary to achieve our full potential. I propose, therefore, that we move away from the current structure of bilateral support and discussions to a transformative agenda which puts regionally owned cooperative solutions and integration at the heart of security preparedness. There is no denying that such a transformative agenda will lead to improved conditions for sustaining economic growth and development from a regional perspective.
Dr. Leon noted that though often ignored, both security and development depend on respect for human rights and the rule of law. As the Caribbean countries continue to battle an increase in crime and violence, he underscored that there has to be a security basis to generate the stability needed to allow development to actually occur.
This transformation agenda that I speak of is urgent. Let's start it today. Not tomorrow, not next year. Today. Why? Because the current socio-economic reality in our region is one that is marked with several setbacks, admittedly consistent with global trends. United Nations estimates that key development anchors in health, in education, and standards of living receded to 2016 levels following the overlapping crises of the COVID-19 pandemic, geopolitical tensions, natural disasters, and financial market shocks. Significantly, and here's an interesting statistic, more than 90% of countries witnessed at least a one-year loss in human development between 2020 and 2021. And that compares to 2008-2009, where 1 in 10 countries, 10%, lost ground after the global financial crisis.
Dr. Leo said security is multi-pronged and encompasses, among other things, citizens, economics, and food, as well as environmental and climate security. Instability in any of these, he says, if not managed appropriately, will lower resilience buffers, weaken systemic integrity, and stymie regional development efforts. For the DBS News World, I am Zane Romulus.
The Caribbean Court of Justice has ruled that a case brought by British American Insurance Company Limited and Colonial Life Insurance Company Limited Policyholders Group, BACOL, can proceed on one of the 4 claims presented as the basis for redress. Glenn Bart of SKN Newsline reports.
BACOL took the case to the Caribbean Court of Justice after the Trinidad and Tobago government did not provide compensation to policyholders outside of Trinidad and Tobago after the collapse of the insurance company. Dr. Patrick Antoine spoke on behalf of BACOL claimants of the Eastern Caribbean.
We have a right as consumers to be treated equitably and to be given the same access as Trinidad and Tobago customers, policyholders had, and that the avenues must in fact be adequate and they must be effective. And we argued that we were not given the avenues of access when there was the meltdown that were adequate or effective. And the court held up that ground. It's very important because there's a lot of misinformation. On that 4th ground, the court argued that the case will go on. In terms of the grounds that we've argued, the court has taken the point that our claim remains undisturbed. So we've claimed that of the members that we represent, which is nearly 2,000, the insurance investments worth nearly $800 million. You heard the figure, right? 800 million Eastern Caribbean dollars. That claim is good. And the court is going to hear the case and make a determination both on the grounds that I spoke about and the claim attached to it in terms of damages. That's what that means, right? So that we have an opportunity to air the full case before the court, and that's not been done in any case of this nature in the Caribbean at all. We are happy that the whole case is going to have a chance to be heard by the court.
BACOL claimants are collectively seeking over 800 million EC dollars in compensation. Glenn Bart reporting for SKN Newsline.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
A recalibration of the brain is necessary for business leaders in today's new world. The point was made by pioneer in the field of creative thinking, innovative leadership and executive coaching, Michael J. Gelb. This TTT News item shares a sneak peek.
Michael J. Gelb was speaking at the pre-event cocktails for the Distinguished Leadership and Innovation Conference 2023 on Sunday. The DLIC is a flagship event hosted by the Arthur Luckjack Global School of Business. On the theme Sustainability Through Conscious Leadership, Mr. Gelb gave a sneak peek of what his presentation will entail at the conference next week.
If you treat all your stakeholders with care and dignity, it's what you said about, you have to know what your values are first, define them. What's your purpose? Have a higher purpose to make a difference in the world, to alleviate human suffering, right? And to elevate human joy. Define all that first, execute in that way consistently, especially under duress, and you will make more money. Not just feel better, not just sleep better at night.
Mr. Gelb shared some of the skills that are necessary to be a conscious leader.
You need the skill of creative thinking. You need the skill of innovation leadership. Do you know what the 5 phases of innovation are? And do you know how to guide a team through those phases? Most of us don't, because how are you supposed to? Because they never taught that. Well, I'm going to share that with you on Tuesday. Then we'll have a panel, and you can ask more questions.
Trinidad and Tobago's finance minister says the International Monetary Fund has zeroed in on the fact that if the government is not prudent with public sector wage negotiations, the nation could have a widening fiscal deficit. This was one of the key points he highlighted as he sought to address issues arising from the IMF's 2023 Article 4 consultation with Trinidad and Tobago. But if the deficit increases in this year, will the government cut back on capital expenditure? TV6's Jewel Brown has the details.
On Monday, Finance Minister Colm Imbert held a virtual media conference to highlight key conclusions of the 2023 Article 4 consultation with Trinidad and Tobago by the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, with the use of slides shown on screen during the live broadcast.
We go to 4. The fiscal position is expected to swing from surplus in financial year 22 to a deficit in 2023, and then stabilize at moderate deficits over the medium term. We had estimated that our deficit this year would be 1%. We estimated that back in September. They are saying they think it'll be closer to 2.8%.
In his budget presentation in Parliament on September 26th last year, the Finance Minister said that with revenues of $56.175 billion and expenditure of $57.685 billion, if all goes according to plan, Trinidad and Tobago's fiscal accounts in 2023 will be close to balance with a deficit of $1.51 billion or 0.8% of GDP. On Monday, Minister Imbert said the IMF highlighted something very specific where the deficit is concerned.
And they have made the point, and I think it's important to note this comment, that the deficit is expected to persist over the medium term, which could widen the outcome over the ongoing public sector wage negotiations.
Last month, in response to a question from opposition MP Rodney Charles, the Finance Minister told the Parliament that the government is waiting on the judgment of a special tribunal of the Industrial Court on its 4% wage offer to public sector trade unions for collective agreements for the periods 2014 to 2016 and 2017 to 2019. Thus far, 2 unions, the Amalgamated Workers Union and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Social and Welfare Association, and also the Defence Force, have accepted the 4% offer.
So the IMF has zeroed in on the fact that if we are not prudent with public sector wage negotiations, we could have a widening fiscal deficit. They expect that whatever the outcome, that we will be within our soft debt target of 75% of GDP.
The Express newspaper posed a question to the Finance Minister about another aspect of government expenditure.
Your question is that if we run into trouble with our fiscal deficit, will we cut back on our capital expenditure program? The answer is no. Because all of the authorities, the IMF, the rating agencies, Standard & Poor's and Moody's, welcome expenditure on capital development. All of these entities are not favorably disposed to increasing expenditure on recurrent expenditure.
The Finance Minister said capital expenditure involves the construction of infrastructure.
Everything within the capital development program is designed to boost economic activity, improve the ease of doing business, and create jobs. So even if we have to increase the deficit to maybe 2 billion or 3 billion, as the case may be, because that's just an estimate from the IMF and it's extremely conservative. They are assuming the worst in terms of oil and gas prices and production and so on. They go to the extreme when they do the calculations. And that's why they were a bit upset that they have to come with a higher growth figure in 22 than us, because they're not supposed to do that. So we would not cut back on expenditure willy-nilly. We will try to maintain economic momentum even if we have to have a higher deficit than we expected.
The Finance Minister said his focus will be on growth. Jewel Brown, TV6 News.
Hubbards is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.